All right, so I'm going to start this presentation. I'm going to just do a quick introduction on who I am. So my name is Dennis Fetting. I'm a special agent or criminal investigator with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically Homeland Security Investigations. Who are we? So we are the second largest federal investigative agency behind the FBI. We actually have more jurisdiction and authorities than any other agency simply because of the size and scope of the Department of Homeland Security. We have, as you can see on the slide there, we have over 6,000 special agents around the country. We have 200 domestic offices, and we're also an international agency. We have offices in 62 different countries. The reason why is because a lot of the criminals that commit crimes against people, in our country are bad actors from other places, and especially that's very true about what we're going to talk about tonight, which is crimes on the internet, crimes against children on the internet, and that's specifically why we're here. You've seen us before and you don't even realize it. So when you go to the movies or you rent that red box, that's that screen about movie piracy that comes up that everybody ignores. That's our badge on the right-hand side. So we do the movie piracy thing too. So that should not be the only thing you learn tonight, but that's at least a little something. Next time you go to a movie, you can say, hey, that's that guy that came and talked to us. The reason why, and we have a huge investigative portfolio. Everything you see up on that screen is something that we investigate. I'm out of the Nashville office, so we have offices within Tennessee alone. We have offices in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, and Nashville. We are a 12 agent and 12 investigator office. I've been doing this job for 16 years. I have been in Miami. I started in Miami, then I was in Newark, then I was in Washington, D.C. for a headquarters tour, and now I've been here in Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee, for about 3 years. When I give this presentation, I don't just give it as a law enforcement guy. I'm also a parent. I have a daughter who is 10, and I have a son who is 8, so I'm going through certain things that parents who are possibly watching this at home are going through. And so, when I talk, I'm also talking to you as a parent and not just some, law enforcement official. So one of the things that we put a lot of heart and a lot of effort into is crimes against children on the internet. So that's child exploitation, child pornography, predators that are going after children to meet them in the physical world, to send pictures, get information about you and your family. We investigate that very thoroughly, and it's something that we put a lot of effort into. And that's why we're here tonight. So this presentation is called iGuardians. That's the title slide for this presentation. So one of the things I want to say to the people who are listening at home is that this presentation is designed for parents. It's designed for adults. And so the reason why I'm telling you that is because I'm going to be talking about different websites and places that kids go to. I'm going to be talking to you about different scenarios about how kids have been victimized. And so I just, not knowing exactly who's watching at home, I just want parents to be aware that this is more of an adult, mature presentation where we talk about a lot of things that sometimes we don't want kids to know about that maybe we just want to know as adults. So when I talk about online, everything that you see up on that slide is what I'm talking about. So I'm 38 years old. Everybody who is watching this presentation, for the most part, probably has a decent chunk of their life where there was no such thing as the internet. Didn't exist. When we did get the internet, if you remember back, it was that fixed tube screen on the desk. We had the dial-up sound, everything was slower. AOL was sending us discs in the mail. You've got mail. That was kind of like a really cool term. Nowadays, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is because the kids that we are raising have grown up in a generation where everything is instant, connectivity is everywhere, Wi-Fi is everywhere. Everything you see up there connects. So when we hand our kids a smartphone or a tablet or a gaming device, when they're on their Xboxes or their PlayStation gaming consoles, these are all things that are connecting to the online environment, to the digital world. I point that out though because these kids have come up in that environment without knowing any other way. They are very tech savvy. They are very smart about technology. They are very smart about if you hand them a device, they can manipulate it, they can fix it, break it, buy things, but they definitely lack, first of all, the real world experience that we have as adults. So they don't think about things like long-term consequences about the data that they send out, meaning pictures that they send, videos that they send. To them, they have a skewed idea of what is a real friend and what is a fake friend. So they don't know sometimes, or they can't realize the idea that a person that they see on social media in a profile could perhaps not be a real person, that it could be a fake profile. And lastly, they don't think about the dark side of human nature, predators and things like that, which is something that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about everything that you see up there, not necessarily in that order. In fact, we're going to start with kind of like a what do parents know type of thing. One thing I want to point out is, so I know that this presentation has been sent out, or people were invited from the elementary, middle, and high school aged children. Basically, the parents who are watching this have those aged kids. And so I want to point out that you elementary school aged parents, you're getting ahead of the curve by hearing these things. It's never too early to start talking to these kids about the online environment. So you're not going to talk to them about things like sexting and predators and inappropriate content. That's over their head. It's scary. But talking to them about things like netiquette, being a good citizen online, don't click on pop-ups, don't share your personal information. If you see something that bothers you or hurts your feelings, tell mommy and daddy, those types of things. When these kids become teens and tweens, it is extremely important and very appropriate, even though sometimes it may be uncomfortable or embarrassing, to have conversations about sexting, predators, inappropriate information, inappropriate content. And these are all things we're going to cover today. So let's go through a little exercise where I'm going to go through a bunch of different things and just see what parents are aware of, things that are happening right now, things that our kids are doing online. And so one of the things that I do is we created a list of top social media sites that parents need to be aware of. And so next to each one of these, we've put like a functionality or something that parents need to know about next to it during a blurb. So normally what I would do is have people in the audience raise their hand as we go through these. You at home could do that if you feel like it, though I won't know if you're doing it. So we'll start with Instagram. So extremely popular, obviously Instagram is extremely popular. And by the way, so I didn't even bother putting up Facebook, and I'll tell you why. First of all, everybody knows Facebook. It kind of dominates the social media landscape. But also, if you go and you talk to a group of middle school students and you ask them, hey, who's on social media? And most kids nowadays raise their hand. And then you ask them, well, hey, who has a Facebook profile? You really don't get that many. Some raise their hands, some nudge each other, and inevitably I will get somebody, usually a boy, who will say, my mom's on Facebook or my grandma's on Facebook. And that's true. That's where mom and grandma and other people are going to share their information. So that's not where these kids are gravitating towards to share the things that that their friends think are cool or that they want to kind of keep private and away from their parents. All right, so Snapchat, Tumblr, Vine. So Vine doesn't exist anymore. Vine was extremely popular, hundreds of million users around the world. The reason why I have it in red is simply because Twitter used to own Vine, and then they basically took it offline a couple months ago. The reason why I point that out is because Vine was tremendously popular and very successful, and yet Twitter shut it down and took it offline. And so I point that out because it's always going to be an ever-changing list. Parents are always going to have to keep up with the latest trends, the newest things, the things that are happening. So to replace that, I get a lot of questions about Musical.ly. So I threw up Musical.ly on there. Kick Messenger, Periscope, Line, which is bigger in like the online gaming community, Yik Yak, WhatsApp, Omegle, and Tinder. So what I'm going to do is, just to kind of save some time, I'm just going to go through a couple of these. So I'm going to talk about Instagram and Snapchat a lot when I talk about personal information and just the sharing of personal information that kids may not even realize, things that they're giving away on those devices. I'm going to jump down to Kick Messenger, so I want parents to realize they need to familiarize themselves with Kick. So Kick Messenger is a Canadian-based social media app. It is designed, you can text and chat with people, you can get into chat rooms, you can send photos, and you can send short videos via Kick. The biggest problems with Kick is that Kick is extremely anonymous, so it does not require hardly any credentials to sign up to Kick Messenger, and the bigger problem with Kick is that Kick links users up with strangers to chat with. So kids who are on Kick are often being linked up to random strangers to chat with. And one of the things that we have found through all of our child pornography investigations is that Kick is full of adult predators that are basically pretending to be a same-aged boy or girl in a fake profile, trying to get these kids to basically give out all sorts of information, get into online relationships, and eventually that's when the sexual solicitation starts. That's when these guys are asking for nude pictures, videos, sexually charged chats, things like that. And so Kick Messenger is a huge problem for us in law enforcement right now. My opinion is there's really no kid under the age rating that needs to be using Kick Messenger. Parents need to know about it. So I'm going to drop down really quickly to Omegle. So Omegle, for those of you who don't know Omegle is a really bad one, especially for kids. Their tagline is chat with strangers, and so it is a random video chat application. The way it works is if you're a user on Omegle, you will be randomly linked up via video chat with some other random user on Omegle. Because of that, Omegle is full of adult predators that are waiting to be linked up with a juvenile, underage, under boy or girl to begin conversations with. Sometimes it just starts with sexual solicitation right off the bat. So Omegle is a huge problem. And so to give you guys kind of an example, how does this stuff happen in the real world? So we worked an investigation, and again, Middle Tennessee, we cover all of Middle Tennessee. So we cover from the Tennessee River all the way out to Clarksville and the northern and southern borders of the state. So everything that I'm going to talk about is occurring in Middle Tennessee. And so we worked an investigation where a 10-year-old boy downloaded the free version of Omegle. He started video chatting randomly with a mid-40-year-old guy who happened to be in France. They began talking about things like video games, movies, sports, things that this kid likes. So this guy is grooming this kid. So they begin discussing all these different things. Some of the things this guy could not talk about because his English wasn't that good, so he instructed this kid on how to use a Google Translator to translate some of the words. So about 20 minutes into the conversation, this guy asked this kid, hey, do you have a Skype user account? And the kid did. Skype's another video chat application. So the guy asks for the username, kid gives it to him, and so this guy now messages this kid on Skype. So they jump over to Skype. As soon as they jump over to Skype, this guy begins exposing himself to this kid, having this kid mimic the sexual things that he's doing, having this kid masturbate. He calls it racing. Now, the entire time that this is happening, this guy is filming this stuff, basically capturing that Skype video and creating child pornography, which they then put up on websites that are hosted by other predators, pedophiles, and they trade within that community very prolifically. So once a video like that is out there, it's literally out there forever. There's no way to get it back. And it sits on these websites. Basically, there is no way to stop the spread of these different images once they get out there. And so that whole thing for that 10-year-old took about 40 minutes for that to happen from the time that he downloaded the free version of Omegle until these videos are out there on the public web and darknet for these predators to collect and trade. So parents really need to be aware of Omegle. I have so many other stories involving Omegle right now. Just realize it's a big problem. It doesn't take long anymore for you to go into the news and find very negative or horrible things that are happening on social media. Everybody saw this instance where the 4 teenagers in Chicago kidnapped the one teenager special needs boy and basically beat and abused that kid and posted it on Facebook Live. Right before Christmas time in Wisconsin, 4 teenagers decide to beat one of their friends because they thought that he was stealing, and then they dumped him in an alley, and it was so cold that he passed away. They posted all those pictures and videos to that kid's Snapchat account. This girl in Ohio used Periscope, which is a live streaming app, to live broadcast the sexual assault of her 17-year-old friend. This one here, this girl was a 13-year-old girl in Virginia who met a 21-year-old and his girlfriend on Kick Messenger. They were both students at Virginia Tech. The boy claimed to be 18 years old and led this little girl on in a relationship, a fake relationship, asked her to meet him offline, and then when she met him offline, he and his girlfriend stabbed and killed that little girl simply because they were linked up randomly by Kick Messenger. Fake profiles. This teacher, 25-year-old chemistry teacher, AP chemistry teacher, by day, by night, he had assumed the identity of a female porn star online, and he would message on Facebook different students in his high school, males, and he would pretend to be this girl and get them to send naked images, sexual videos, which he would then trade and collect. Not a single one of those kids had any idea that that was their chemistry teacher, much less the fact that it was a male that they were talking to online. So here's a bunch more apps and sites that everybody needs to be aware of, and parents really need to get an awareness of. And this clicker has kind of frozen up, so we'll see if it frees itself in a minute. But the point is, these slides, I could fill probably, 10 more slides with all the different social media sites and applications, things that parents need to know about. So the parents are really going to have to start doing their research. So Chat Roulette, just like Omegle. Meet Me is a supposedly kind of like a dating site, though in reality we see a lot of adults trying to meet kids offline because it'll find people by geography and area. Burn Note is a lot like Snapchat in the way that it claims to get things, have things disappear. So there's a lot of different sites that parents need to know about. Hidden calculator apps. So something parents need to know about, especially parents, I would also say school administrators, law enforcement. There's an awareness that's growing about these. I've been talking about these for a few years now. One of the things I'll say about these hidden calculator apps is that they are commercially available on the iTunes Store, Google Play, And what they are is they're basically a cyber locker. And so there's a lot of different variations. The calculator is just one example. These are fully functioning calculators. They work just like a calculator. They look like a calculator on the device, but they are designed to hide videos and images, pictures that these kids don't want their parents to see. They don't want school administrators to see. They look like this, or they look like this. Now they come with the thumbprint encryption so that it's even harder to get into them. Or they look like this. The newest versions of this come with a real and a fake password, so it advertises right on the site. If you're forced to open your hidden calculator app, you can type in the fake password that you've pre-programmed, and pictures like dogs and trees and innocent pictures will come up. And then when you're away from the parents or whoever, you will then be able to access the photos that you want by typing in the real password. They also come with the ability that if somebody types in the wrong password, which is just an equation on the calculator, it will take a picture of their face so they now know who's trying to snoop in their phone or break into their phone. So be aware that there are a lot of different students using these. We find these that also criminals and bad guys are using these cyber lockers to hide and encrypt pictures, texts, and things like that. The reason why I'm pointing this out, though, is because both in Denver and in Robertson County, Tennessee, Greenbrier High School, there were big sexting scandals where these kids were trading nude and sexted images of their classmates around, and they were all using these hidden calculator apps to hide that information, that data from law enforcement, from school administrators, so parents need to have an awareness of that. Dropbox accounts. So something that high school students, high school males especially, have been doing lately is they are collecting up nude and sexted images of classmates in the middle schools and high schools, and they are putting them in a Dropbox account, and then they are selling the Dropbox password to other students who can then access those photos, save them, trade them, do whatever they want to do with them. There was a big scandal just last May in Boston, was the last one that hit the news really big. So just be aware of the whole Dropbox idea as well. So one of the things that I also try and point out is what is the dark net. So we talk about, for those of you who don't know, the public web is really only a small portion of the internet, the digital environment that, that's where your Googles and your Bings crawl through. That's where all of your public websites are at. The dark net is really or the deep web is really a very large chunk of that digital environment. Now within the deep web, there are these fully functioning sites and internet sites which we call dark nets or hidden services. And so those are, you can get on them with your normal computer at home or your laptop, but you have to have a certain type of software called Tor, which is the onion router. Now the reason why I'm pointing this out to you is because the dark nets are basically, there's really not much good activity going on in there. Most of it is illegal or illicit black marketplaces, but there's also a lot of child abuse, child pornography, child exploitation content that's found there. This was a screenshot of the narcotics page from Silk Road, which was a really well-known darknet site. You could go on the narcotics page and buy anything from coke to heroin, meth, ecstasy, whatever you wanted. It would come in drop shipper from overseas, US Mail, FedEx, UPS. Mostly people were paying with bitcoins, virtual currency, things like that. And on the side there's listings of other things you could buy: firearms, stolen identities, child pornography, that type of thing. Now, when we find, it's not a matter of just finding these sites. These sites exist. We know about these sites. It's a matter of finding the data, the servers, who's administrating these different sites, and when we can, and it's always a multi-agency thing, we will take these sites down, arrest the people, seize all the data. But there are currently, we took down Silk Road 1, then there was a Silk Road 2. We took that down, now there's a new Silk Road. There's one called Agora, there's one called Alphabay, and so these sites continue to pop up. So keep that in the back of your mind, but I'm not saying necessarily that I'm definitely not saying your elementary school student is going on the dark net, but I also don't think your middle schoolers and high schoolers are necessarily going on the dark net. Why I want to talk to you about the dark net is because it hosts a lot of child pornography, child exploitation websites. And so this is an example of one, a sanitized version. Every one of those blurred out squares is a video of child pornography. This one investigation that was worked for just 1 year on just one of these websites, you can see that there were victims, child victims in 39 different states and 5 foreign countries, and you can see the age and sex breakdown of these victims. These guys that were running this site were interested in males, in boys, and they were interested in basically that late middle school, early high school age. The reason why I'm pointing this out to you is because a lot of the content was from social media, so social media derived. Now, some of it was physical abuse of children and things like that that was posted, but what these guys were very good at is creating fake profiles on all of the different popular social media sites, everything from Instagram to Snapchat, Facebook, Kick Messenger. They would go on different gaming sites, Minecraft and other places, and they would find kids to chat with pretending to be either a 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old boy or girl. They would create entire profiles that looked like that aged child, and they would begin relationships with these kids, and through time and through grooming tactics would eventually get these kids to send nude videos, nude images, sexual videos, things like that, and they would post all of that stuff up on these websites for these other predators to collect and trade. There were over 27,000 members to this one website in just that 1 year, so that's 27,000 predators or pedophiles or sickos, if you want to look at it, who were all members of this website. There were 2,000 videos that were created by these guys using tactics like fake profiles and tricking kids into sending videos, tricking kids into meeting them offline. These guys were very prolific, very good at what they did. So, to give you an example, I'll give you an example that kind of crosses over into our next topic, which is gaming. So I'll give you one quick example about a case that we worked, again, here in Middle Tennessee. A boy met one of these guys on the game called Minecraft. So Minecraft, obviously very popular with middle school and elementary school aged kids, maybe early high school. One of these guys pretended to be a 16-year-old and met this boy on Minecraft. They became friends on Minecraft. What these guys do is they meet these kids in the game world, and then they transition them over usually to social media. And so they become friends. All right, so maybe third time's the charm. Let's see if this battery wears out too. So where was I? So this juvenile eventually creates all of these videos. Parents really had no idea all of the different things that were going on. And this child was basically groomed to this entire behavior through these rewards, and it all started through that Minecraft game, and this guy basically meeting this kid on Minecraft and then transitioning to social media. The reason why these different games are up on this screen right now are not because these are bad games or prohibited games or anything like that. It's just these are games that very recently we have opened an investigation into child exploitation, child pornography on. And so the method, most of these are tablet-based games, and some of them obviously are console gaming. The entire deal and the things that parents need to be aware of is with each one of these games there's some collaboration, something where people have to work together. And so these kids have to kind of chat with other users, people that they don't know. So one of the tactics that these predators are using is they realize that these kids are going to discuss things within these games and begin chatting and talking. And so they will create clans and guilds and groups together, basically waiting for juveniles to get into these very popular games. And once they're in there, they will build friendships with these kids, give them resources and coins and gold and everything that they would need to succeed in these games. Ultimately, they will then transition them to something like Kick Messenger or Facebook or Instagram, and once they do that, then they can see these kids, they can see what the family looks like, because all the data we give away on social media, and there will be sexual solicitation. So just realize that, what's important about this is you need to realize who are the people that your kids are chatting with in these online games. Find out who their online gaming friends are, because we're seeing a lot more of this predatory activity that's coming out of online games. All right, so in regards to the whole predatory practices, predators online, there's a few things you need to know. So talking to these kids about what is a real relationship, what is a fake relationship. With these kids, it's very important for them to have a bunch of followers on social media, to have people repost and retweet their stuff, to like their photos. But something that parents need to realize is if you're handing your kid a device at a very early age, they need to get rid of all of those friends that they can't tell you in real life who they are. And the reason why is because we have found the number one or one of the main tactics of these guys using social media is the fake profile, pretending to be somebody that they're not. And these kids buy right into it. If they see a picture or a video, they buy right into the idea that that's the person that they must be talking to. So getting rid of all of those friends that they can't tell you who they are in the real world from church, school, sports, something like that, family, is very important, especially at an early age. Those are the biggest things, but talking to these kids about the warning signs and the fact that they shouldn't believe everything that they see is huge. So the next section is personal information, and so it goes from, kind of dial it back a little bit, it goes from that the predatory practices all the way back to personal information. That's where it all starts, is the giving away of personal information. So everything that's up on the screen is, that's kind of elementary stuff. Kids know, we've all been taught, you don't give away your passwords and your financial information and your social security number and things like that. But when I talk about personal information, I'm talking about things that a lot of people don't think about. Our devices, our tablets, our phones are designed, especially when you have social media involved, to give away our location at all times. Checking in, showing where you're at, where you just ate your favorite meal at, or where your kids are going on their next field trip, or where you decided to go on vacation. Social media is designed to show off things about your life, including location. When you put that, something like Instagram or Snapchat, into the hands of a kid, and Instagram's default setting is public. So for example, on Instagram, something that's set to public, if I'm a user on Instagram, I can browse through public profiles, I can look at photographs, I can follow profiles, I can like pictures, and there's a messenger feature so I can instant or direct message people online. And so I think something that parents really need to be aware of is the fact, things like metadata. So for example, every single picture that your iPhone takes right now has metadata buried inside of it. Metadata is things like exact date and time stamp, GPS location. That's the type of thing that I'm worried about. When you post something to social media, most of the reputable social media strips metadata out. However, any picture that you post to the internet directly, any texted photo, any emailed photo, contains that metadata. There's free applications on the iTunes Store and Google Play. There's one called Photo Investigator that you can download, and you can basically look at any photo and pull the metadata right out of it. And so that concerns me when you have children that are texting images to unknown individuals. That metadata sits inside those photographs, and it's very easy to get an exact GPS location about where these kids are. Geolocation, so I talked about checking in, the fact that your phone is constantly giving away your location. But even more than that, let's say you had things, locked down to more private settings. Think about the clothing that your kids wear in their photos. If you have an Instagram account, let's say again, set to public, and your child plays for the local high school basketball team, let's say, and they post a picture where they're in their basketball jersey. If I'm some predator that has found that profile and I'm interested in that juvenile, I now know where they play basketball. I can Google the home schedule, and I can show up in that gymnasium the next week and watch that kid, and no one will know why I'm there if that's what I choose to do. So I want kids, especially younger kids, middle schoolers, later elementary school kids, if their parents are allowing them to have devices, and especially if they're allowing them to have social media, start thinking about things like metadata, geolocation, what you're wearing, things that you say, because that's all stuff that's really, truly personal information that these people need to be aware of. It's so much more than the stuff that you see up on that screen. The biggest takeaway from this point is basically setting everything down to private. So social media should be set, everything from public down to private. No social media should be set to public until parents deem it to be a correct age. Especially though for middle school aged kids and younger, there's really no reason why they should be giving away as much information as they do about themselves on a daily basis via social media. So it goes from that, that personal information to inappropriate information, and that's stuff like you see up there. And so I would say if the predatory practices happen 1% of every time a kid is online, I would say kids stand so much more of a chance of getting in trouble for stupid things that they post online via social media or texting to each other. These are the things like fights, drinking and drug use, hate speech, cyberbullying, all the different stuff that kids want to post out to be gossipy or funny or to get attention. These are the types of things that can really get these kids in trouble though. So I always give the example, there's a swimming video that I showed middle schoolers and high schoolers where this basically very successful swimmer, he wins the state championship, goes to a party, drinks, and some people take pictures of him, and then the coach gets a hold of those pictures on social media, and the kid is off the team because it's a zero tolerance policy, no scholarships, things like that. And it's a cartoon dramatization, but then I remind them about, for example, Michael Phelps. So 2008, 2009, Michael Phelps comes back from Beijing Olympics, and he is really a hero. I mean, he's won more gold medals than anybody else, national hero, kind of a world icon in swimming. And he goes to a party, smokes marijuana out of a bong. Someone he didn't even know at that party takes a picture of him and puts it out on social media. And overnight, Michael Phelps becomes this international news sensation. This was the newspaper from London, basically calling him a dope. So what happens? So he loses his endorsements because of his bad reputation, loses his money because he loses his endorsements, really starts suffering from self-esteem problems, starts drinking, gets arrested for a couple DUIs, has to go to rehab, quits swimming. Now, there's a redemption story, obviously, from this past summer. We just saw Michael Phelps come back and win gold medals. He trained again, he got married, he had a kid, he straightened his life out, but it took him years to get that reputation back simply because of one photo that was leaked out via social media. Kind of skip through a couple of these really quick. So, just October, November, everybody remembers the scary clown hoaxes and scary clown epidemic that was going on. During that time period, I could look in the news at any one time and I could find news articles about kids who were going on social media pretending to be one of these scary clowns, threatening the schools, threatening students in the schools, and getting arrested by local police. This one was Fresno, this one was in Maryland, this one was in Minnesota, here's another one in Utah. Every one of these kids was about between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. Every one of them was arrested by the local police for the threats that they made online. And every one of them was found eventually that it was just a hoax, that none of these kids had true intention to do anything. But does it really matter at that point? Because they've already been arrested. They have some sort of a juvenile record. Parents need to realize that what these kids think are funny is not at all funny anymore. And the fact that law enforcement can no longer take things that people think are hoaxes, in any other way than a real threat. And that's because of the fact that, recent terrorist activity has shown that these terrorists are posting long before they actually commit these crimes. They are posting their intentions and things on social media. School shooters are posting things online before they go and commit a mass shooting. I worry for kids because they don't think necessarily or filter what they're putting out there. That law enforcement, especially local law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, school administrators, school principals, cannot take this stuff lightly, and so there's a lot of consequences for the stupid things that these kids post. This is a good example, too, of how this stuff sticks with you. So this was a freshman wide receiver at Fresno State University, a walk-on, so he was good enough to get into college on his academics, a good enough of an athlete to be a walk-on student in a football program. And what he did was he went on Yik Yak, which broadcasts to like the fewest, nearest 100 users or few hundred users. And he says, at 3 p.m., I will release my frustrations, tired of dirty looks, getting rejected and being talked about because of how I dress. My choice weapon is the M4. So this kid is saying, hey, look, I'm going to come and shoot all of you people who have been picking on me. So, of course, school goes on lockdown, kid gets arrested, no more football program, no more college. But more than that, when you Google the name Christian Malik Pryor, that's this kid, he was 19, so it's public record, you're going to see 10, 15 articles about this dumb thing that this kid did and nothing about what great things he possibly did. Again, I worry for students, and I talk to them about the fact that everything they post has long-lasting implications and that everything should be considered a piece of a digital resume. When I talk to student classes, I'll ask them, hey, look, who in here is an athlete? People raise their hand. Who in here is in the arts, theater, music? Kids will raise their hand. Who in here gets good grades? And half the kids will raise their hand. And I say, all right, look, I'm assuming you or your parents would love for you to get a scholarship offer. I promise you this, there's no school out there right now that is going to be handing out scholarship money to anyone for any one of those reasons without doing their homework on who they are in their private life. And that includes digging through their social media sites. Employers now are requiring or asking for people to give what social media sites they use, and sometimes they're asking for their profile names and passwords. I would say there are tons of large companies that are now contracting with people who specialize in digging in social media to find out who are these job applicants in their backgrounds, in their private life. Everybody looks good on a resume. Everybody looks good on a college essay. What's important is what are the kind of pictures you're posting, the kind of gossip that you're spreading, the kind of words that you're using. That's the kind of thing that these schools and employers are going to be looking at in the future, and these kids need to realize that and think about all of that stuff as a digital resume. Let's skip to the next one. Maybe. All right, so talking to these kids about the fact that that stuff is a permanent piece of their life, the fact that it sits out there. And things like Snapchat where you can set a certain amount of time to make it disappear, burn note, things that data still goes somewhere. It sits on servers, it sits on devices, it's very easy to screenshot that data and repost it somewhere else. I always am constantly talking to these kids about, don't believe that lie about the idea that those images and that data disappears. That stuff is out there. I can retrieve it from devices forensically. I can get it with subpoena authority. That stuff is out there forever, and these kids have to know that. So talking to them about that, setting consequences about the use of social media, the use of smart devices, of texting, of chat rooms, the use and the things that they post, contracts with younger kids online is a great way to do that. Those are all very important things to talk about with these kids. So it goes from that inappropriate information to sexting. So why are kids sexting? I think it's safe to assume they're sexting for any number of reasons. You know, to be funny, to impress a crush, because they, at the age of 15, they think they met their soulmate that they can trust. You know, I think this is the logic that kind of drives these kids in sharing these very embarrassing, if they leak out, and inappropriate photos with other people. So I show this video to middle school age classes, and so I think I'm just going to skip over it for the purposes of time, and since we're doing like more of a live broadcast than an actual live audience here, but it's a really good video. I'm going to show you guys a resource to get that from netsmarts.org. But basically the idea behind this video is that once a photo goes out, basically a girl sends a photo to her boyfriend. The boyfriend, who's sitting there with his buddies, decides to show his friends. They say, hey, look, why don't you send that photo to me? He thinks about it for a minute, and then he passes it on to another kid, who then sends it out to a bunch of different people. And now it's out there and basically gets in the hands of a bunch of different types of people, including an online predator. I cannot tell you how real of an example that is, how many times we actually see that played out in real life in high schools, middle schools across the country. All right, so the consequences of sexting. Obviously, it's humiliating, it's embarrassing. There's a lot of bullying and harassment that goes along with that if these photos leak out. There's school discipline, obviously, if these things are occurring in school with students, trading on school time, on school grounds. Schools get involved, school resource officers and state and local law enforcement get involved. And I have to tell you too, and I tell students when I talk to them, you know, the idea of like one student trading a naked image with another student, kids may think that's harmless. However, in the eyes of the law, that's still child pornography. I have seen, so as a federal agent, we don't prosecute juveniles. We prosecute the predators and adults that go after children. But state and local authorities, local sheriff's departments, local police departments, district attorneys, ADAs, they are prosecuting juveniles at the juvenile level for these types of activities. I've seen everything in Middle Tennessee, because every county is a little different, but I've seen everything from, at a minimum, phones getting seized and destroyed because they contain child pornography, all the way up to kids being court-ordered to juvenile counseling, put on juvenile sex offender registries, being put in juvenile detention if their trading is becoming basically like an organization, or there's organized activity to the trading of these images and things like that. So kids need to realize they may be great kids that get pulled into some nonsense where they receive an image, pass it on to other people. That can be very damaging to them in the long run in the future. Aside from police involvement and school involvement is blackmail tactics. And so a case that I really want to tell you guys about, or a type of case, the case that we work is called sextortion. And so what that is it's basically a blackmail case, and the way it works is, again, using fake profiles and mostly social media, these predators will do everything from pretend to be a same-aged boy or girl and flirt with these kids and get them to send sexual images, all the way to sending them things like gift cards, jewelry, perfume, you know, you name it, things that these kids want, putting money into their online gaming accounts like we talked about. Once they get those images, however, they will then turn around and reveal to these kids, hey, look, I'm not who you think I am. I'm an adult, and I'm now going to send these images out to all of your friends, to your family, to your church, to your sports team. Everybody's going to know who you are and what you did, and they will basically threaten these kids. So here's an example from one of our sextortion investigations. This is a piece of evidence from an older case that's already been adjudicated. In this case, this FB is Facebook and Kick is Kick Messenger. So as you read this at home, the way that this basically worked was this guy was exploiting a bunch of little girls in the US and Canada by pretending to be, he had 4 or 5 different social media accounts, and he would get these images from these girls, and then he would send them something just like this that basically began the threats. He would then follow it up with, you know, something a little bit more graphic and harsh. In this instance right here, this adult male was talking to an 11-year-old little girl, basically telling her she needs to send these images to him right now, or else he's going to spread this information all over the place. Something that people need to realize is that that's not an idle threat. These guys can do it because you know how social media works. when you're linked in with other people's profiles, you see their friends and who their contacts are. These guys will record and write down their contracts and send these images out if these kids don't comply. I can't tell you how many of these little kids, often girls, but sometimes boys, will then send images back doing worse and worse things. I can't tell you how sexually deviant some of these images are, that these guys make these kids do really horrible things to their bodies because they are so scared, they're afraid their parents are going to find out or their school authorities are going to find out, that they're willing to do that type of stuff in order to not be in trouble. All right. So this is Matthew Cheney Walker. This is the guy that was basically doing that to these little girls in that instance. So this guy tried to victimize a little girl in Middle Tennessee, and luckily that little girl came to her mom, and the mom then called the local sheriff's department. Local sheriff's department, who we work with, called us, and we were able to find this guy very quickly. So he was down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so we found him and we figured out who he was. So we got an arrest warrant, federal arrest warrant for him, and our office down in Baton Rouge went and arrested him. So Matthew Cheney Walker was a first-year law student at LSU. His dad was like the Bart Durham of personal injury lawyers, kind of a well-known figure in the community. So he had victimized 52 different little girls in the US and Canada, really horrible images, trading it with other people. I think it was last month or the month before, he just pled guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for these crimes, so that's great. But the reason why I point that out is because that image, that idea that people have of a predator, which, for the most part, I think it's that stereotypical guy in the kidnapper van, old guy sitting in his underwear in his parents' basement type of deal. That is not what you're going to find in your nowadays online predator. Yes, they still run the spectrum of age, but there's no way to know what these people look like, who they are, how educated they are, what job they're in. These people we find when we arrest them, they run the spectrum of every single type of job, every socioeconomic standing. So just realize it's all about diligence and not about trying to stereotype who you think you're dealing with. All right, talking to these kids about the consequences of sending these images out. Letting them know, look, the only way to be safe from things like sextortion and other tactics is to not send these images out. Yes, that is much easier said than done. I know that. I remember being a teenager. Hormones are crazy. There's a lot of pressure to do these types of things. I get it. But this is a different day and age than all of us as adults grew up in. I mean, it is much more easy to spread these types of things so far and wide, and once those things are gone, there's no way to get that stuff back. All right, last thing I want to talk about is cyberbullying. So I'm going to really touch on this very quickly. Everything you see up there is an example of cyberbullying. So the difference between if we were bullied as a child, as adults, if we were bullied as a child, it was, localized. So it was in a classroom, on a playground, at a sports place. But, it was temporary in the way that it was a small group of people and it was temporary. You could go home, you could go away from that stuff. Nowadays, the problem with cyberbullying and use of social media and chat rooms and texting and group texts is that these kids are involved right in that stuff. So they are being picked on, and the statistics show that the kids that are being picked on in school are usually being picked on by the same people online. So they will see these people in the real world, and they're getting picked on and victimized, and then they will go home, and they don't necessarily want to see what's being said about them, but they kind of need to look and see. It becomes like this 24/7 cycle that these kids can't escape. More than that is that it's not localized anymore. It spreads so much wider, so much faster. It gets to other school districts, other counties, other states. Videos can go viral in the matter of a week, with hundreds of millions of viewers if something is interesting enough or stupid enough, something that grabs people's attention. So every kid that you see up there within the last few years has committed suicide because of cyberbullying. And so just to go through a couple of them very quickly. So Jessica Logan was an exact example of that video that I talked about where the images got sent to a boyfriend and then got spread out. She was a 17-year-old girl who was suffering from depression. She sent some flashing photos to her boyfriend, who then spread those images around the school to his friends, and then they leaked out everywhere. She started getting picked on and bullied and made fun of. That, coupled with the depression, led her to commit suicide. I want to focus on Amanda Todd as an example for this evening as to some kid, basically a child that went through almost everything that we talked about. Now, the unique thing about Amanda Todd is that Amanda Todd was a 13-year-old teenager in Vancouver, British Columbia, very much like the United States, just north of Blaine, Washington. The unique thing about Amanda Todd is that a couple months, 2 months before she committed suicide, she went on YouTube and she created a video basically telling her story in her own words, basically just talking about everything that she went through. She was a victim where she, basically of everything we talked about for the most part, she went online and shared way too much information about herself. She also sent out inappropriate images and then was blackmailed, sextorted. She was a victim of physical bullying in the real world and then a victim of cyberbullying. She was also a self-mutilator, a cutter, so she had her own issues that she was going through. All of that craziness that was brought on in that online environment led her to commit suicide. She went on YouTube and she's told her story in her own words using note cards. So I want to play that video for you so that you can see, that this is something that really does happen in the real world and it does affect these kids, in the real world. So, tragic reminder that these are the types of things that are happening in the real world and that not every kid is prepared to deal with this heavy type of stuff that's occurring. The one thing I'll say very quickly to kind of close out this cyberbullying thing is it's really important to stress to your kids as an early age being a good citizen. So, stand up for somebody. I realize that's not the easiest thing to do. I'm not saying somebody needs to go punch a bully in the face, but letting a kid know that they're there for them, telling a school counselor, school resource officer, administrator, teacher that someone's going through a hard time will avoid issues like this if someone would just speak out and say something and make somebody aware, because there's a lot more awareness about things like cyberbullying and bullying and threats and harassment and things like that. So, before you guys at home destroy your internet, rip out the cords, pull down your, your satellite dishes and destroy everything, here's a few things that you can do, kind of a list that we put together that would mitigate a lot of these things. And so those of you who are elementary school age parents, you're going to be way ahead of the curve on this. And you new parents who have, middle schoolers may have to do some of these things to protect your kids. But one of the biggest things is password protecting that iTunes store or that Google Play store so that kids have to come to you to download everything, both free and paid apps. That allows you to then decide, should they have this application, should they not, should they get this game, should they not, what are the hazards, that type of thing. And that leads right into the next one, which is to preview and review and read and research materials about these apps. So if your kid comes to you and says, all my buddies are using Omegle or all my friends have Kick, look, those are not good apps for kids. So you as parents need to do a little bit of research. It takes 5-6 minutes at night when you're decompressing, pull out your iPad, type in the name of the app. The first things you're going to get are the advertisements, but right below it, you're going to get things like news articles, parent advocacy sites, law enforcement sites, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, commonsensemedia.org, all these different sites that are going to tell you what are these apps and what's their functionality and are they appropriate for kids. Time and area limits are huge. So what we find in our investigations is a lot of the time that these kids can get away with the things that they're doing and people can exploit them is out of their parents' eyes. So at night, in their room, door closed, at a friend's house, at school, unfortunately, when nobody's looking or paying attention, if they're on the bus or in the cafeteria or whatever, need to keep an eye on what these kids are doing. Friends lists, we already talked about getting rid of all those strangers and only having it be people that they know in the real world. All privacy settings need to be set from public to private so that people can't just continue to pry and browse through these kids' profiles and find them. Contracts with these younger kids are great. It's got a list of basically things that you expect them to do online. You sign it, they sign it, stick it on the fridge. It's kind of like a legally binding document in your home. Set the expectation. If you break these rules and were to take this device you set the punishment. Device check-in times are great. So have those kids put that device, that phone, that tablet on the kitchen counter before they go to bed. You can spot check it. In my opinion, if you're paying for that Wi-Fi or that device, there's really no password your kids should have that keeps you locked out of somewhere in their device. Therefore, you should be able to spot check it and make sure that they're safe. And lastly, it's really important to talk to them about the permanency of that data. The fact that everything that leaves their phone, every text, every video, every picture has the implication to hang around forever, and they need to put that filter on it. Would my parents approve? Would grandma approve? If this stayed around forever, would it embarrass me? Would it be a problem from my family? I realize kids don't think like that, but we need to start getting them to think like that. A little bit of countercultural thinking would be really good in regards to this stuff. So, that's very self-explanatory. We really need to communicate with these kids. It's not enough to just hand them a device and let them watch a video. You've got to be in their business, play the video games they play, find out who their friends are, check their friends lists, be involved in their social media life, their gaming life. There's a lot of tech options, so I can't endorse any product, but I will tell you parents that there are great both software and app-based ways to now monitor cell phones and mobile devices and tablets. You can do everything from monitor every text and video and picture that goes in and out of the phone and who sent it, to some of these companies contract with Facebook and Instagram so that you can check into their accounts. You can set time and area limits. You can have the phone shut off at a certain amount of time. Lots of different options. So just realize that used to just be that you could really only monitor or screen desktops or laptops. A really good way to find these companies is just Google or Bing, search how to monitor my kid's phone. And there are some really good articles, Consumer Reports type comparisons of different articles different companies that offer these services. So realize there's a lot of ways for parents to monitor their kids and still give them freedom to have their own devices. Last thing I want to tell you guys about is netsmarts.org is a great website. It's run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who we work with on all of our child exploitation investigations. Videos that I really didn't show you tonight, but that I could have possibly shown you, or other videos that you want to show your kids, are all on there. The Amanda Todd video is on there. There's also great tip sheets, safety pledges, contracts. They have their own search engine called NetSmarts 411, where you can search app names and find out more about what you want to find out about. It's a great resource, and it's non-for-profit. There's no bias to it. There's also one for younger kids, for elementary school age kids, to get them thinking about cyber safety, but at a very age-appropriate level, called netsmartskids.org. And lastly, this is me. So, I always extend this invitation out. If there's something that your kid is going through, or you find out that this type of thing is happening, give me a call. If you have a question about something, give me a call. Send me an email is usually preferable, because we're out working a lot of different types of investigations. You can always reach me by email. I will always reply, even if it takes me a day or two. I also go out and do these presentations, no charge. Me and a couple of other guys from the office just do this in our free time, because we need to get that message out there. So, we are tired of having to go out and see really horrible, circumstances where kids' lives have been traumatized or ruined because images or videos have gotten out about them. Their parents, are devastated. They are very upset. We're trying to get ahead of the curve by doing these presentations. And so, funny enough, I don't know what you at home can actually see, but this entire auditorium nobody's here. There's no parent that's here except for a couple of administrators and staff. And I point that out because I'm hoping there's a bunch of people watching me right now, though I don't know if that's the case. Do me a favor, those of you at home, because there were 3 schools, I think, that were all invited to this, and I hope there's a bunch of you watching. But obviously, probably only a very small percentage of the entire population of this school district or this school's cluster knows this stuff. And if you found it to be valuable, do me the favor of passing some of the information on. Act like a force multiplier for me. Pass this on via social media. Pass it on to your friends in the neighborhood, parents that couldn't make it, parents that couldn't attend. And like I said, so normally I take questions, but there's really nobody here to take questions. So I'm just going to end it. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the fact that you listened to me, and that's about it. Thanks very much.